All right, you guys, welcome back to another lesson. In today's lesson, we're going to be taking a look at the differences here between CPAP and BiPAP. And my name is Eddie Watson, and I want to welcome you to ICU Advantage. My goal here with ICU Advantage is to take these complex critical care topics and really break them down and make them easy to understand for you guys. I hope that I'm able to do just that, and perhaps by the end of this video, I'll have earned a subscription from you. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon and select all notifications to never miss out on a new lesson. And as always, a special thank you to all of our awesome subscribers out there who continue to watch, like, and support this channel. Really, without you guys and your support, this channel would be nothing. And also, I want to shout out to another awesome channel here on YouTube. A big thank you to Joe over at Respiratory Coach, who has really been helpful in preparing the next few lessons here. If you guys haven't seen his channel, I'm going to link to it down below. And he really has some awesome videos out there on topics related to respiratory therapy. And so I really encourage you guys to head on over there and check out his channel. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our lesson here and start off with an introduction here. Now, essentially, CPAP and BiPAP are two different versions of something that we call non-invasive ventilation. You can also hear this go by another name of non-invasive positive pressure ventilation, or NPPV. But essentially what this is this is a less invasive way for us to be able to provide support to our patients who really need help breathing. And ultimately we do this without the need for endotracheal tube intubation. When we have the need for an endotracheal tube, this is then what we call invasive ventilation, and is actually going to be something that I'm going to talk about in a future lesson here. But the important thing to know here is that we're going to be using this in patients who have either respiratory insufficiency or ultimately respiratory failure. And so if we take a look at our respiratory failure, there's actually two different types that we can see. The first one is our type 1, or what we call hypoxemic. And this one here is going to be a failure of oxygen exchange, so essentially a failure to oxygenate. And this one is really defined as having a PaO2 of less than 60. And the other type of respiratory failure that our patients can have is what we call type 2, or hypercapnic respiratory failure. And for this one, we can think of it as a failure to exchange or remove carbon dioxide, thus a failure to ventilate. And ultimately, this is going to be defined as having a PaCO2 greater than 45. Now, important here is we can have overlap and combination of both of these types. Now, if we look at the different treatment options that are available for these respiratory failures, if we look at our hypoxemic respiratory failure, there's two different things that we can essentially do. First, we can increase their FiO2, or the oxygen that they're getting delivered, and this would be essentially increasing that oxygen supply that we're providing to our patients. And we are going to see this FiO2 in a fraction form, with 100% being represented as 1.0, and room air, which we know is 21% oxygen, being 0.21. Now, the other thing we can do to help with hypoxemic respiratory failure is we can increase our patient's mean airway pressure, and we would use this to open back up and recruit any collapsed alveoli. Now, our treatment option for our hypercapnic respiratory failure is actually pretty simple, and essentially we need to increase our patient's minute ventilation. Now, the way that we can do this is through two different things. We can either increase their respiratory rate, or we can increase their tidal volume. Now, given that we should be setting a tidal volume based on our patient's ideal body weight, this really kind of leaves us one option of adjusting our patient's respiratory rate if we want to impact their minute ventilation. Now, the big takeaway that I want you to get from this is we really need to reverse the underlying process if we truly want to fix the problem for our patients. The non-invasive ventilation is really only support to fix the problems that are associated with this underlying disorder. All right, hopefully that makes sense for you guys. So let's go ahead and move on from here. So let's get in here and talk about the two different types of non-invasive ventilation that we have, CPAP and BiPAP. Now, before we get started, let's go ahead and test your guys' knowledge here. In the comments down below, let me know what makes CPAP different from BiPAP. By the end of this lesson, you should have a much better idea of these differences, but if not, I will be on here responding to your guys' comments to try and answer them, or really explain in more detail if needed. Alright, so like I said, there's really primarily two different types of non-invasive ventilation. The first one is what we call continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP, and the other is what we call bilevel positive airway pressure, or BiPAP. All right, so let's start here talking about CPAP. So this is actually something that's similar to positive end expiratory pressure, or PEEP, that I am going to talk about in the future lesson when we talk about ventilators. But essentially, CPAP is beneficial for patients with the hypoxemic respiratory failure. So CPAP is a good option in helping our patients who have congestive heart failure. And the reason for this is because CPAP actually increases our patient's intrathoracic pressure, and this can ultimately reduce their preload. So this can bring the heart back from that far end of the Frank-Starling curve and really ultimately improve their cardiac output. And in addition to that, the pressure inside the alveoli can really help to push that fluid out, hence the congestion, really opening them up to gas exchange. And really the biggest benefit of CPAP is the ability to reopen or recruit and ultimately keep open collapsed alveoli and kind of splint them open. Doing this is going to help decrease our patient's work of breathing and ultimately providing more alveoli to be available for gas exchange. All right, CPAP is also another thing that has a lot of benefit in patients with obstructive sleep apnea to really help keep open their airways. And ultimately, CPAP can help to increase our patient's functional residual capacity, which is really that reserve that a patient has for their own respiratory function. All right, so if we actually talk about the settings that we have available for CPAP, there's really only one setting of pressure, and this pressure we're going to have delivered throughout inspiration and expiration for our patients. Now, this pressure is usually going to be in the range of 5 to 25 or 30 centimeters of water, but we probably really shouldn't go above 20 when we're dealing with acutely ill patients. Kind of our reasoning for this is if we increase that pressure, we're going to increase that intrathoracic pressure too much, and this can ultimately lead to hemodynamic instability. As well as the higher these pressures that we have, the higher risk we run for insufflating our patient's stomach, and this can really increase their risk for emesis and aspiration. All right, so let's go ahead and move on and talk about BiPAP. You may also hear this one referred to as bilevel or BiPAP. These are all the same thing, essentially. And BiPAP is going to be useful for our patients that have that hypercapnic respiratory failure or a combination of hypoxemic and hypercapnic failure. So this is going to be a good option for patients with COPD as well as our patients with heart failure. We're going to see some of the same benefits that we were just talking about with CPAP with our heart failure patients, as well as COPD here. This is patients who are having trouble with ventilation, and that's one of our big benefits to BiPAP. Now, BiPAP is a really good option to help and prevent intubation, or if we need to wean really difficult patients from the invasive ventilation, BiPAP has really been shown to decrease mortality in these patients. So now, essentially, as you probably figured out from the name, bilevel means that we have two pressures. We're going to have our inspiratory positive airway pressure, something that we call IPAP, and then we have our expiratory positive airway pressure, or our EPAP. So our inspiratory positive airway pressure is a pressure that this is going to provide to patients when it senses inspiration. And you can really think of this as support for the patient taking a breath, thus it's going to help with that ventilation. The settings range that we usually see for our IPAP is just like we had talked about with CPAP, usually from 5 to 25 or 30. Now for our expiratory positive airway pressure, we can really think of this one as being like our CPAP. Essentially, this is a lower pressure that's going to be applied throughout expiration. And again, this is going to help to provide support and really keep those alveoli open and support oxygenation in our patients. Now, we can set our patient's EPAP to 0 if oxygenation is not the problem. The human body naturally has a physiologic PEEP that's about 2 to 3 centimeters of water. And this is a key difference between non-invasive and invasive ventilation is in intubated patients, this is not an option. That's something, again, we'll talk about in a future lesson. Ultimately, though, we can go from either 0 or any number up to but less than our IPAP because, again, we want to have that difference in those pressures. Now, ultimately, the difference between these two pressures, our IPAP and our EPAP, is what's going to give us what we call our pressure support. And this pressure support is what's going to help to determine what our patient's tidal volume is. The bigger the difference that we have, the bigger the tidal volume that our patients are going to receive. And the more tidal volume that we get means we're going to have more ventilation and thus CO2 clearance. Now, there are some machines out there that do allow you to set a respiratory rate and an inspiratory time on them. And essentially, this respiratory rate is really just the timing between when the machine is going to automatically switch from our IPAP to our EPAP. But in reality, most of our patients that are on this are already going to be pretty tachypnic and really are not going to need this setting. Now, there actually is a newer version of these machines. It's something that we call AVAPs, and that stands for Average Volume Assured Pressure Support. And essentially what this machine is going to do is it's going to automatically adjust the pressure support breaths, trying to achieve a target tidal volume that we set. And the way that it does this is it uses a feedback loop to either increase or decrease the pressure in order to keep that tidal volume at our goal level. So this is something you may come across. Really, essentially, the big difference here is that we're going to be setting that target tidal volume, and the machine in AVAPS mode is going to attempt to adjust those pressures in order to meet that goal. All right, so hopefully that cleared things up for you guys and you guys have a better understanding of the difference between CPAP and BiPAP. As you can see, they're quite a bit different and serve different roles for our patients, and hopefully you're able to see that and understand that now. All right, so let's move on from here. And the last thing I really want to talk about real quickly is, when is our non-invasive ventilation not enough for our patients? Sometimes the support that we provide to our patients is just not going to be enough for them. And so some of the things that we want to be cognizant of and be aware of is if either our hypoxemia or our hypercapnia is not improving despite aggressively titrating the therapy, then at this point we may need to look to intubation and mechanical ventilation. Now, also, if our patients are nauseous and having emesis, that they may be at risk for aspiration, and the same goes for patients who have copious thick secretions. Now, if your patient continues to exert themselves and their work of breathing is really not improving, again, we may need to move on. And finally, our patient really needs to be able to protect their own airway. So if we have lethargic or unconscious patients, they're not going to be a good candidate for our non-invasive ventilation. Ultimately, the big takeaway here is we want to make the decision to move on from our non-invasive ventilation and into intubation. We want to make that decision proactively as opposed to waiting until our patient tuckers out and now we're emergently intubating. All right, you guys, that's going to be the end of this lesson here. I really hope this helped to explain the difference between these two different types of non-invasive ventilation, our CPAP and our BiPAP, and really give you guys a good understanding of what these differences are and why we would use one over the other for our patient. I do want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this lesson helpful, leave us a like on the video down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe in order to continue getting the latest in critical care education. Don't forget to check out ICU Advantage on social media, as well as we just recently started a Patreon page. If you'd like to show support beyond YouTube, head on over there. I do have additional content that you won't find just on YouTube. Finally, make sure and check out another one of our awesome videos right here. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.